Today, I'll be going over my 2025 Heisman predictions. Again, this is preseason. We have no idea what anything's really going to look like yet, and nothing really to go off of except for the past year and roster updates going into this year. At my number 3 spot, I got DeMond Williams. Look, I know this is a long shot pick, and that's kind of why he's at 3, not at 2, not at 1. I figured I had to have at least one long shot pick in here. He really hasn't had a chance to perform until last year's bowl game. Performed really well though. 374 yards through the air with a combined total of 5 touchdowns, 4 through the air, 1 on the ground, which again proves to show that he is a dual threat quarterback. And sure, I'm not going to act like an ACC team, especially in a bowl game, is that impressive to put numbers up on. And looking at his other games, he has struggled a lot. I'm not going to try to run from that fact. But the fact that he was able to put up those numbers, it lays out the opportunity and shows that the Washington coaching staff will at least put him in a place to succeed. If he's utilized in the way that I think he can be, he could definitely pull off a Heisman. Is it likely? No. He's got plus 15,000 odds on sports books right now. That's absolutely terrible, but it might be good value, especially at that bad of odds. Again, like I said, he's a dual threat quarterback. He has 2 veteran wide receivers to throw to and is also complemented by Jonah Coleman, who's a pretty great running back. Again, his threats aren't Jeremiah Smith level. It's not Travis Hunter level. It's not Nick Nash level. I'm not trying to make that argument, but especially with a younger guy, he's coming in as a sophomore, throwing to at least some veterans, it's at least going to balance out some of the chaos compared to if there were 2 freshmen he was throwing to. Again, something that we have to consider going into this year is that a lot of the major teams quarterbacks are all unproven young guys. So to say that DeMond Williams doesn't have the same chance that all those other super young guys have is kind of not a good argument. He has the same opportunity. Sure, he's on a team like Washington for a reason. He probably wasn't highly recruited like some of the other guys, like an Arch Manning, like a Lenora Sellers, right? But that doesn't take away from the fact that he can ball out. And like we saw in the bowl game, once again, it's a bowl game, and it was an ACC team that probably had a lot of transfers. He still balled out. Again, there are some worries I have with DeMond Williams, especially because, I hate to say it, but the Heisman Trophy can sometimes be a popularity contest. I think we saw it last year with Travis Hunter winning over Genty. I think Genty was an absolute perfect Heisman pick, but yet Travis Hunter plays both sides of the ball. He's with Coach Prime over at Colorado, right? They got the spotlight, and for that reason, I think Travis Hunter got the edge over him at the end of the season. That being said, if DeMond Williams has a spectacular season, he will win the Heisman. But if it's a close race and it comes down him or Arch Manning, I think it's going to go to Arch Manning, you know what I'm saying? Simply because of the name. Even if they both play equally as well, it will definitely go to Arch Manning. Another worry I have is he going to be able to put up the same production against Big Ten teams? I'm not going to act and pretend like the Big Ten is as good as the SEC. Again, his one good game was against the ACC, and even when he played Oregon, he got sacked 10 times. Again, was that an offensive line issue? Sure. But also, he's a mobile quarterback. He should be able to evade at least a little bit. Again, it's hard to say, but those are just some of my concerns. Another concern is he even good? He had one good game in a bowl game versus Louisville. I'm not going to pretend like that's enough to solidify him as a Heisman candidate this year, but again, I just had to throw a long shot pick in there, and I think that DeMond Williams is a great pick for a long shot. Which brings us to pick number 2, Jeremiah Smith. Again, quarterbacks usually win the Heisman, but this is still a very strong pick. Probably the undisputed best player in all of college football going into this season. We don't need to get into the nitty-gritty numbers, and I just expect him to progress even further than he did last season. You can see the stats on your screen, but honestly, the stats lie. He had such a great impact on the game. You can't just look at stats to truly justify how well he played last season. Unlike somebody like DeMond Williams, he has proven he's a sophomore, but he's a dog. It's one thing to pop off for one big game. It's another to dominate every single Saturday. Jeremiah's floor is most players' ceiling, and he'll be a number 1 weapon on a college football playoff contender all year long. Again, he does put up highlights, but he's also consistent. He's on a good team, and even though he's in a tougher conference than the ACC, it seems that doesn't matter because nobody can guard him. My only big worries with Jeremiah Smith come in with Ohio State being built so well that other players on the team are going to get their fair share. We have Quincy Porter, a 5-star, coming in. We have Brandon Innes, who's a solid guy, Carnell Tate, who's just extremely underrated, and Max Clare, who was like a top 3 tight end last year who transferred from Purdue. That puts Smith in a tough spot because if other guys are contributing, that means Smith's output is decreasing. And that's not necessarily making him a worse player, but when we're talking about the Heisman Trophy, you kind of need to have good stats. You kind of need to ball out, and you kind of need to be that forefront number 1 guy. And if everybody else shares the spread, well then Julian Sain will just win the Heisman. Again, that's also assuming that Ohio State's the best team and they're putting up crazy numbers, right? That's also an assumption you have to make in that situation, but to say that Smith isn't in a little bit of a handcuff situation would be hard to get around. Again, being probably probably the best player in college football, but only having plus 1,100 odds kind of goes and shows that. Honestly, though, that's my only worry alongside the issue of him not being in the conversation by the end of the year last year and being yet one of the best players in college football. It was Hunter and Genty, and that was the only conversation we had last year. He wasn't anywhere near it. I think Nussmeier was kind of in there a little bit, but again, that was just kind of it. Which leads me to my number one contender, who is Cade Klubnik. QBs tend to win the Heisman, and that's not a secret. The ACC level of competition is fairly weak, allowing him to put up stats, but again, that kind of also evens out because the committee will probably look at, oh shoot, he did dominate, but it was in the ACC. So if him and Arch put up the same numbers, Arch will probably win the trophy, right? But another thing is, Clemson is a big college football playoff favorite because they just have so many veterans coming back. The team around him is also built very well, elite wide receivers, many who are veterans and returning. And again, in a year where there's so many new young quarterbacks, Cade Klubnik, who has been proven, alongside with a veteran room of wide receivers, that is dangerous. Number one for the playoffs, but also for the Heisman Trophy race. Honestly, on paper, there's nothing that sends off any big time red flags. Of course, he's gonna have to produce like any other player would, but if he does and Clemson is a playoff team, I don't see how he doesn't have a great shot of winning. This kind of goes for everybody in this video, but with just a bunch of new quarterbacks on top level teams, both Genty and Hunter being drafted last year, there is a completely open field for anyone to come in and win the Heisman this year. Again, when it comes to the Heisman Trophy, I like Cade Klubnik. The best over Arch Manning, Garrett Nussmeier, or even a guy like Drew Aller. But again, that's just my take.